Hey, welcome back to the Girl Be Free podcast. I'm your host, Siobhan, your clarity cultivator and founder of Be Free Project. I help women who are ready to flourish, feel fulfilled, and be free to show up for themselves. I am extremely passionate about community, sisterhood, and personal growth. So if that's your jam, you are in the right place. And now let's get into the show. Hey, welcome back to the Girl Be Free podcast. I am back for another Chasing Free series. And today I get to interview my friend, Pringle Jefferson, who is the creator of the Self-Care Suite, a digital community that creates room for women of color to breathe, both online and off, through curated events and in-depth self-care experiences. She serves as a self-care concierge to help community members see that they are whole, worthy humans who deserve a life that doesn't burn them out. Tara, welcome to the Girl Be Free podcast.
Oh, I'm so excited. I loved hearing you read that. I was like, yes, I do. I do all of that. Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes, yes, and be proud of all of it, right? Well, thank you so much for taking time to be on the show. Of course, I'm like, this is long overdue. Like, I feel like I should have actually like a long time ago, but I'm glad that you made time in your schedule to chat with me. And so let's kick it off with the first question, which is what inspired you to begin to create the life you want?
Oh, goodness. I think um, what really inspired me was having my daughter, my first child, when I was in college. I really felt like at that point, I was I just turned 21 when I had her, when I brought her home from the hospital. And I felt like my life was kind of like, okay, you have to do the responsible thing now, right? Like you have to go get a full-time job. You got to go and, you got to make this marriage work. You got to do all of these things. And I felt like I was for the first, 2 or 3 years of her life, I was just kind of like doing what I thought I was supposed to do because I wanted to make sure that I didn't fail at this, right? I wanted
Mm,
to be a good mother. I wanted to people to look at me and see a successful woman, what I thought, their definition of a
mm-hmm.
successful woman. And it wasn't until she was maybe in preschool and I had another child by then that I was like, I think I want to kind of take the reins a little bit. And the first step of that was entrepreneurship. And right around the time that she was about 4 years old is when I got laid off from that supposedly good job
Mm-hmm.
that you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to have. And instead of going to get another job, I was like, oh, I'm going to try to make this work on my own terms and see how that goes. And it is 10 years later and
Mm.
still doing it. And entrepreneurship, I think, has really helped me, has been the launching pad for me being free and kind of feeling like I'm in charge of my life and my schedule and my day to day. And it's been amazing.
So, two things we need to point out here. Number one, you've been in business for 10 whole years,
Yep.
which is absolutely amazing. Number two is that you got this early on in your 20s. Like,
Hmm.
something's not right. Like, I need to
Hmm.
figure this out. Like, I didn't get that message until I was 32, where my kids were small, toddlers, and I'm like, it has to be more to life than this. But to get that in your 20s, I
Yeah.
think is amazing. Like,
Yes.
because so many women are even lost in their 30s, 40s, 50s. So, was there, outside of having children, was there something else that you all like? Was that desire for entrepreneurship always in there? And it's like, okay, I know I have to create a better life for myself because now I have kids and getting laid off. Like, there has to be more. Like, was it always that desire?
It really was. Like I realized when I got that quote unquote good job, making good money to help take care of my kids, I realized then like I have everything that I'm supposed to have, but I don't like commuting to work every day. I don't like being in this office. I don't like the fact that, I go in my office to work and I close the door and my boss and coworkers have a problem with that because I'm just trying to focus. When I was younger, when I was like, I don't know, my best friend from like fourth grade. We were like 10 or 11, something like that. And we, I was always drafting plans for a business, right? Like, I don't know what type of like 8, 9, 10-year old is just always walking around like writing down business plans. But we had a bakery that we were going to launch. We had like the menu. We had like deals, like you can get 3 for 10, like all of
Yeah,
these things.
okay. Yes.
Like I was always interested in having my own something. Like as the years
Mm.
went by, it was having my own bakery. It was having my own magazine. It was always something. And it wasn't until like my 20s and late 20s, early 30s, I'm like, oh, this is, this is more than the notion.
Hmm.
But but that was really something that has always been top of mind for me, is like, how do I have my own something, whatever that
Hmm.
is.
I love that. So, what was the first personal growth resource that you used, whether it was a book, a coach, journaling, meditation, that really helped you on your journey?
I would have to say my first tool was therapy. I started therapy when shortly after I started my business, actually. So in the early days, maybe I was like 2 years into entrepreneurship. I decided to go to therapy, and that was my first, first time sitting down with a therapist, kind of sharing some things. And at the time, it was more so trying to figure out who I was as a 20 something woman in a young marriage with two young kids. I was in grad school. Like, I just had a lot going on, and I was like, I just need to put this somewhere or talk to somebody about it. And through that exposure to therapy, that's when my therapist would be like, hey, like maybe you should journal, or maybe you should, try meditation. And one thing that I loved about her was that she was a huge like book nerd like me. So she'd
Me
always be
too.
like, read this book, or read, check this book out, or this, resource might be exciting, or this website might help you. And so I think starting at therapy really helped me, because I was able to get so many resources from that one resource. If
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. And I love that. And our stories are so similar because I was
Mhm.
in grad school, young and
Mhm.
married with two kids and
Mhm.
working, trying to figure out
Mhm.
all the things. And I love how you pointed out therapy, because that was the first tool that I used, if you will, on my personal growth journey. And that is what led me to my purpose. And I feel like sometimes people want you to map everything out for them. And it's like, no, sometimes you got to heal from some stuff first before you can even walk into your calling or your purpose. Otherwise, you're going to mess people up. And
Right.
that's just my opinion. And so I love that therapy was that first outlet for you that led to other things. I love that. Now, how do you show up for yourself and do all the work? Because you have a very large community of women who depend on you. And then you're a
Mhm.
wife and you have kids. So how do you show up for yourself and do the work? And then the second part of that is, what does the work look like for you?
Yeah. So I created this community and this business as kind of like a fail safe, right? Like as a accountability function in my life. Like I have these people. I had gone through a period early on in entrepreneurship where it was just all about the work. It was all about the clients. It was all about how I can make money. I was sitting down at my dining room table to work for like 16 hours a day, like just getting up to go to the bathroom and get some water, and like that's it. And so when I transitioned to this business, I was like, okay, I need to do something to like make it an integral part of my life, that I do not take the ball off myself. And I cannot show up in front of these women, dragging all the time and crying all the time and broken all the time. Like I need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself. So I am very quick. Every morning I do like a quick check-in with myself. Like before I even open my eyes, I kind of know what my day is gonna look like, what I need. Before my feet hit the floor, like I'm like, okay, I didn't sleep well last night, or I slept great. I can get a bunch of stuff done. It's gonna be a productive day. Um, if I didn't sleep well, or if a lot of stuff's been building, like, hey, I'm gonna take a mental health day. And I think that's the beauty of what I do, that I can do that. I feel really fortunate and blessed that I can kind of change my schedule like that. But I like to really check in with myself and have these conversations daily, like, hey, you got all these things going on in your world. What do you need right now? And sometimes what I need is a bath, right? Like I just need to soak and let the water soothe me, because I'm holding, stress physically in my body, and I kind of want to let that go. Or sometimes what I need is to go to the gym, because I need to, sweat and release some stuff. Um, Otherwise, like I will reach out to my friends. Like I'm a really big proponent of community, and that's basically the backbone of everything that I do is like building community and building connection. And so I, don't hesitate to, reach out to a friend and say, I'm really struggling today, or I'm really not in a great place. Do you have a minute to talk? And they will listen and work me through it. If it's bigger, I think, than just a call with a friend, then I'll be like, hey, it's time to make an appointment with my therapist and get back in there. But I feel like I have reached a stage in my life now. I'm in my early 30s, or as my husband says, my mid 30s, my mid 30s, where I don't neglect myself, right? Like that's kind of like one of my core values, is that I always find ways to check in with myself to see how she's doing. I do this one thing where I try to take care of my future self. And so, yes, I try to take care of my future self. And it's little things, right? Like it's little things, like I'm out and I'm driving and I notice that my car is on E. So I go get gas right then instead of waiting for future me to go do it and go fill it up, because inevitably that is when I'll be running late, and that's when I won't have time and gas will be more
Right,
expensive.
exactly.
Or like I'll buy tickets to a comedy show for 2-3 months in advance, just so I have something to look forward to, so I can take care of future me. So I try to do things that set future me up for success, because if you are constantly doing that, then your days just become smoother because somebody is looking out for you. Like 2 weeks ago, you know I set up this interview with you and I was like, oh, this is a perfect day. I'm not gonna have to rush. I'm gonna be, nice and rested. It's gonna be great. And then this morning I was like, this is all I have to do today is is this interview, right? So
Yes.
looking out for future me, that's one of the ways I show up for myself most, because it's just that little tip has like changed how I kind of view self-care and how I eliminate some of that clutter and chaos in my life, because I'm always like, well, this is easy. I can just do, 5 minutes now and then eliminate a half hour of stress later.
You just preached the whole word. You did. And I'm over here. I wish y'all could see us, because I'm just nodding my head. I'm like, you can't interrupt. You can't keep, just let her talk. But I'm like, oh, I'm just like, yes, yes, yes. Because number one is that the self-awareness is so, so, so important. And so many people don't value that enough, or don't realize how valuable that is. And we were just talking before this call how I've just, after coming back from the Rise conference for the second time, just being in this very different emotional state. And I knew for 3 days, I'm like, something is off, Siobhan. Something, you got to figure it out. And I was so self-aware, and I allowed myself to feel all the feels. And I'm like, okay, we've done that. We've cried, we've journaled, we talked to a couple of friends here. What else do you need? And I'm like, I need Reiki. That is what I need right now. And knowing that it was at the divine time to prepare me for this call. Because had I not had that Reiki session, I would not be able to be present right now. So I love how you do these self-checks even before you get out the bed. And if I want everyone to pay attention and really listen to that, and really, what do you need? Like, what do you need? And then honoring that. Number two, I am all in this future self going forward. And I thought I was there before, but you just affirmed and confirmed what I knew. So starting today, I was like, okay, actually I started this yesterday. I said, what does your future self need? Your future self wouldn't wear those socks. Throw those socks away. Your future self won't drink this. So make sure your future self gets something that she will benefit. So drink lots of water. I went to Target today. I said, oh, my future self wants kombucha. That is what I'm going to have in this moment. And it feels good. You're like, yeah, I'm taking care of future self. So now you've just helped me even more, because future self wants to go on a date, or future self wants a lot of things. So how do I prepare for that now, so that when these moments come, I've already taken care of her? Oh, that is so good, Tara. That
I
is
love
so
it.
good. I love that. So what is your biggest fear, and how do you overcome your fears?
Oh, um, I don't want to say I don't have fears. Um, because I obviously do. Like, fear is a part of life. Like, you're always scared about things. Um, I will say that probably one of my biggest fears is I've done a lot of work in this area, as you could probably tell, because I'm like, my biggest fear. I don't let anything like scare me. Like my whole big thing is do it scared. Um, but I think my biggest fear is probably like not measuring up, right? Like not doing enough or not committing enough to the work that I'm doing or um, not being um, fully operating in my gift, I guess you could say. And it it used to be my biggest fear used to be, just how do I get started and what, how will people respond to me and how, what if this flops or what if this, this thing that I'm launching, what if it doesn't work? That's not really what I'm concerned about. Like I had to really I think it was a Beyonce um, interview that I think the most recent one she did where she said like her job is to create the music, and once she releases it to the world, it's no longer her. That's no longer on her. And so I really took that to heart, and it's like, I just have to show up. I just have to bring my full self to this. I just have to just really do my best in these moments where I'm working with my community, I'm launching something, I'm working on a project. I just have to do my best, and it's not up to me to decide if it was good or if it was valuable or if it was worth the money. That's not up for me to decide. It's up for them to decide it, and all I can do is put my best foot forward. So, my biggest fear is really just around like, am I showing up as myself? Am I showing up enough? Am I, hiding behind something? I really have done a lot of work around that fear area, and I recognize like when I'm scared about something, it doesn't mean don't do it. It means like take a closer look at this and see to yourself, okay, what is causing this fear? What am I really afraid of? What is this fear trying to let me know? And once I did that, and I recognized that um, fear isn't there to stop us, but it's there to like really give us clarity. Then I'm like, okay, I can be scared of anything, and I can figure that out, and then I can keep moving forward.
Yep, I love that. And basically, you're breaking down the fear and finding out where the root of it comes from, figuring that out, and then moving forward anyway. And so often people get the butterflies in their stomach, they have the fear, and then they stay stuck right there. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't stand it. I cannot. I cannot. I'm like, feel the fear and do it anyway. And it's like, what's the worst that can happen if you're not going to die? What's happening? Like, why
Right.
not just try it and put yourself out there, because it builds character, as we both know. It builds momentum to do that next thing. And then you realize how you are, and I'm not going to cuss, but how you're the ish, when you move past your fears and then you start to benefit from you showing up for yourself. Like, oh, that's
Mm-hmm.
so good. So, so, so good. What keeps you motivated on days when you feel overwhelmed?
On days where I feel overwhelmed, I keep in a couple different places. And one thing I will say, when I'm feeling overwhelmed or I'm just not really motivated for something, I always get a message, right, from somewhere. Like a member of my community will email me out of the blue. I'll get like a little love donation. My husband might say, oh my God, like I can't believe you did that, like I'm proud of you. Or my kids will give me a hug out of the blue. Like when I'm feeling low, I usually will get like some type of signal to like keep going. um but I also I try to go back to like through my emails, or I'll go back. I'll like stuff on Twitter, like different compliments or things that I've received. Like I'll go back and I'll just kind of remind myself of the value of my work, not through my own, assessment, but just like what are people saying about things that they've experienced that I've put out into the world? How has my work shifted people's worlds? And just really sink into that, right? Like people don't have to let you know. They don't have to send you messages. So the fact that people sit down and type something out, or send you something, like that means something.
Mm-hmm.
And I um love, I won't be ashamed to admit it, I love outside validation. Like,
Mm-hmm.
give it to me. Like,
Yes,
please tell
yes.
me I'm
Mm-hmm.
amazing. Like, please, hype me up.
Yes.
But I also have this like really persistent voice inside, kind of like that same voice that told me like entrepreneurship is the way that you're going. Like you're not meant to sit in an office, with somebody else's plan that you're
Mm-hmm.
executing. But I've always had this really persistent voice that's like, you're doing good work. Like
Yes.
you are putting out good work into the universe, and by you continuing to show up every day, like other people are having breakthroughs and other people are shifting their trajectory because you decided to press send on that email blast, or you decided to hit go live with this event series. And so I really just try to think about one, what I'm putting out into the world for my community, but also what I'm also sharing, or what my children are looking at when they see me plan these things. And I've brought them to a number of my events and had them on hand, as I know you have too,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just so they can kind of see, well, this is what mommy is doing, and this is what these women like her, and
Yeah.
they are enjoying themselves here in this space my mom created. And so I like that legacy aspect of it, because not only are they there and seeing me in motion, but they're also getting some of the lessons that
Mm-hmm.
that we're sharing together as a community too. So I do a lot of things. I have a
Right.
lot of
Yes.
things
Yes.
going on
Yes.
when I
Yes.
feel overwhelmed or not quite motivated. And I will say that thankfully, that feeling of overwhelm is not as frequent as it used to be. So we'll just say
Yes.
amen to that.
Amen. Amen. We
Yes.
share so many of the same sentiments. And not that
Yes,
I
we
didn't
do.
know this already, but like talking to you, I feel like I'm hearing myself talk. That's
Mhm.
exactly what it feels like. And like you, I get the signals all the time. And you're right. It means a lot if out of the billions of people in the world that someone will stop scrolling in their
Mhm.
feed to say, hey, thank you so much for showing up. And you're like, I feel so
Mhm.
seen. And so that means a lot. And I hope as people listen to this episode that if someone inspires or you're admired by someone in some way, shape, or form, let them know, because you never know what they are going through. And I have this thing where every now and then I'll text my friends, and you already know, how's your heart today? How are you feeling? Because I need to make sure that we're all doing good, because this work is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. It's not.
Mm-mm.
It's not at
Mm-mm.
all. And the other thing that I want to touch on is the lessons that your children are learning from you, because the same like you said with mine, and it blew my mind at this last, and I don't even think I told you this, at the last Be Free meetup. Jordan was there, my daughter,
Mhm.
and I know she's there, but I don't think she's paying attention. I think she's just doing her own thing. So this time she came upstairs, and when we had like our circle and everyone's chatting, and right before it was about to end, she was sitting in the corner and she raised her hand or something. So I didn't pay attention because I'm like, whatever. And so someone's like, your daughter wants you. And I'm like, what do because I'm like, I'm working. What do you need? And she said, can I say something? And I said, well, yes, you can. And she starts sharing her experience and how, she's trying to be better at this, just sharing several things or whatever. And I started crying. I'm like, because prior to that, we had been going, and we've been talking about this,
Mhm. Mhm.
this teenage stage or whatever. So we've been kind of battling, going back and forth. So to hear her share her experience, I was like, I'm doing a damn good job.
Yes,
I'm
you
doing a damn
are.
good job. And for her to be brave enough, a 14-year-old, to speak in front of these women, where there's sometimes women in a circle that can't raise their hand and say something. And
Yeah.
I was like, that's it. That is why we're doing what we're doing, to be an example for our children, whether they get it now or they get it later, but they're seeing something in us that's challenging them to show up. And that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
So, so
I love
beautiful.
it. Mm.
Yeah. Ooh, I meant to call you and tell you that, but life has been busy.
Yeah, but I love it. I love hearing that, because my daughter, she's 13, and she is a force. When I tell you, like, I might, in my moments, I might try to call it like stubbornness or whatever, but like she knows what she wants, and she knows what boundaries she set up, even with me. And I'm like, I taught her that. Like she has picked up on this stuff, and I can't get mad at
Right.
her, like, just doing the things I taught her to do, to show up for herself, to speak up
Mm-hmm.
for herself, to
Yes.
share what's on her mind. Like it took me, like we were saying earlier, it took me, I was twice her age
Hello.
before I
Yep.
could do that successfully. So I love this. I love this new generation we got coming
Yes,
up. It's gonna be
yes.
good.
And we do have to appreciate it because it's hard. Because it's like,
Hmm.
you're right. We have taught them, but now they're using what we taught
Yep.
them on us. And we're like, whoa, wait, what is this? But oh, yes, this is the type of woman that I want you to be. So let me embrace it. So, yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
what is the most important thing that you've learned about yourself? And we'll just say over the last year.
Ooh. Um, it's funny because I feel like we're taking our private conversation and like bringing
Yes,
it to the
I
podcast, which I
do.
love,
Me
which I
too.
like. I'm like, you already know this.
Hmm.
But like the biggest thing I learned about myself is that previously I feel like I was operating in a space where I felt like I had to prove something to somebody. I felt like I had to every time I stepped out, I had to go bigger and broader, and like I had to be more intense, and I was stressing myself out all the time because I just thought that there was somebody somewhere that was like waiting to see me fail, and I had to make sure that that didn't happen. And when I realized that I can't say for sure that there's nobody that's rooting for me to fail. I can't say that for sure. But what I do know for sure is that I got a whole tribe of women who want to see me succeed and are willing to, you know, fly in early or, check in on me or text me or, hug me when they like, I had to not take that for granted. And so the one thing that I learned about myself was that I can just exist as I am, and that is enough. I don't have to perform for these like imaginary haters or, people who want to see me fail. I can just be myself, and that's enough. And that was a really, really powerful lesson to me because I feel like that had kind of weaved its way through, the previous, 8 or 9 years of entrepreneurship. Because I feel like we all kind of have some of that when we have our own business because we're like, oh my God, what if we fail? That's gonna be
Yep.
bad. Like
Hmm.
I can't go back to an office. I just said that I didn't want to be, I didn't
Right,
want to be in
right,
an office.
right.
And so I just had to be like, you know what? It's okay. Like you've always been able to pay your bills. Like you've always had, you built this community and it's self-sustaining, like they want to see you thrive as well. And once I internalized that, I was like, oh, like business doesn't have to be a battle, it can just be me, like I said, walking in my purpose
Yes.
and other people showing up in their purpose. And then we're just all growing and thriving and just learning together. So I'm so thankful, even though 2019 was
Come on.
a rough year
You
going
already
through
know.
it.
Hmm.
But in hindsight, I had to get knocked down a couple times in order to be like, oh,
Hmm.
that's not the end of the world. Like I thought it would be. And so now I can just move forward with less pressure and less because I'm the only one who had all these expectations. I'm the only one who thought everything had to be perfect. Nobody else had those expectations of me. So once I let that go, I was like, oh, I can just exist and it's okay. And this is perfect as it is.
Hmm. Oh, so good. And so many life lessons in that I hope that the listeners are picking up on. Like, just be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Just simply show up as yourself. That's one of the things I learned when I went to Rise in Florida in January. I realized, and we've talked about this, that I was not being confident in showing up as my full self. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what made me think like, nope, you can be a little bit of yourself, but if you give too much, then you're going to offend someone or people are going to think you're too confident or you're too this. And I know the reasons. There are several things that have happened in my childhood and even young adulthood that caused me to play small. I left that conference like, screw that. Like, screw that. I am taking up all the space. I am being bold. You're going to see me, and whoever don't like it, which I don't feel like you, like I don't feel like there's any haters. And if they are, they definitely don't let me know. But show up and be your full self, because otherwise you're cheating yourself and you're cheating the people that are a part of your community, because they need to see you that way. So then they get permission to be themselves as well. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we just share so
Yeah.
many things.
Yeah.
So tell me, what are you most proud of, or like what has been the most rewarding experience that you've had that you're so proud of?
Whew. Um, I would probably say this past fall, when I hosted my first, and I've been saying like international, but like, Puerto Rico is part of the US, but not really, like
Mhm.
for event planning purposes, not really.
Right.
But there was a moment on the trip where I took 45 women to Puerto Rico for our annual self-care retreat. And there was a moment in the rainforest where we were on two different buses, and we were, kind of driving through the rainforest and making stops and getting out. And I had never been in a rainforest before, right? I didn't realize, I mean, it's in the name, but it rains all the time. Like like it rains like every 15 minutes. Like it'll pour, and then it'll be sunny and beautiful, and then it'll pour. And I was like, okay, this is different. And it was still warm, of course, it's Puerto Rico, but having all of these women together, they're laughing together, they're in their ponchos, like they're in their ponchos, and then the sun comes out and they take the ponchos off, and then the rain comes and they put it back on.
Yes, yes.
Like
Because you know
it
how we
was
do. We
just
got to keep our hair covered.
that hair was covered, it was
Yes.
tucked in, it was all good. But seeing all of these women together, like laughing and taking selfies, like in the rain, right? Like I just felt like this immense sense of sisterhood. Like, look at what these women are doing. Like, they are, hugging each other, and they're like frolicking in like these little rivers, and there's like little fish swimming around their feet. And um I always say with these events, like, and I know you probably feel the same way, but like, we put together the agenda and like the outline, and we try to make it an inviting space, and we try to make it so that these connections and these bonds can occur. But then the women come in and they fill it with their own, special something that I could not manufacture. Like, I could not make that. And so just to have all of these women together exploring in nature in this beautiful setting, that also inspired me, because I think they said after Hurricane Maria, all the leaves were gone in the rainforest. Like, this is like a 1,000 acre, I don't even know how big it is, but like all the leaves were gone after the hurricane came through. And then to see it be so lush and like see it bounce back so beautifully in less than 2 years, like it was so inspirational. And it just made me feel like if I could do this, I could do
Cool.
anything. I could
Yes,
do
yes.
anything. And so that was really that was a big moment for me, because I was just like, these women, got their little ponchos on,
Mm-hmm.
they're having a ball, I'm having a ball, and it was just, I could not have scripted it better, right? Like, it was just me um just letting go. And look what happens when you let go and you
Mm-hmm.
put your best out and just let go of the rest. It's perfect.
Magic happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I was thinking as you were talking, like, these women are a part of your dream. Like, they are a part of your dream. Like, this vision and this idea that you had in your head is now tangible, and everyone's a part of it. And it's because you decided to show up for yourself. Had you not, there would be no frolicking in the rainforest, no ponchos. But your dream, you manifested, and now women are experiencing. And I've been to 2 of your self-care retreats, both in New Orleans. I talk about it all the time. And absolutely, there's nothing like it. And I highly recommend that women invest in your self-care retreat, because it's definitely a beautiful experience, especially because it's for women of color.
Mm-hmm.
That is powerful in itself, and we need more of it. So I'm glad that you had that experience, and it allowed you to let go. Like,
Yeah.
let go of trying to control all the things, and let's just let our hair get wet,
Mm-hmm.
fun, and just be like, to be free, right? To be free.
Right.
And so this leads me to my next question, and I already know the answer, but for the sake of this conversation, like, how important is community and sisterhood to you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is literally like, that is it's etched into my DNA,
Yep, me
right?
too.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think I've told you this story, but I'll share it here on the podcast. Like, it's etched into my DNA so much. Like, when I was a child, I used to play this game with my sisters called Homeless Woman. And I used to make them stand in the hallway and they would knock on my bedroom door and I would like usher them in and I would put like a blanket around them and I'd give them some tea and some snacks and I'd like put them next to my little quote unquote fireplace, which is like my desk or something. I don't know. And like I've just always wanted to like help other people and I've always wanted to use what I had to make sure that, you know, the community, you know, we all look out for each other, then that just makes for a stronger, better community. And I was realizing as I was pulling together some remarks for a talk I have coming up, um, I was realizing like every single position I've ever had, like I've tried to build some type of community. When I worked at that nonprofit straight out of college, that, you know, job that I was supposed to get to pay for, you know, to take care of these kids, you know, I went way outside of my job description and I created a nonprofit like social media learning tour. Like my boss was like, "What are you doing? Why are you not in the office?" And I was like,
Right.
"Well, I'm bringing these nonprofits together
Mhm.
and we're going to have once a month, we're going to meet up at different," like I had all of these and she was
Yes.
like, "That's not what we paying you."
Like,
And I
get
was like,
back
"But
to
there's,"
work.
I was like, "But there's no community in my job description.
Mhm.
How?" And I was like, "How can I make it? Like I want to do that." As I've literally every iteration of my professional career, there's been some element of community building. And in my personal life, it's the same thing. It's just like, how do I take my friendships very seriously. I think it's a new um, trend for women, especially married women, to take their relationships, their friendships as serious as they take like their
Mhm.
marriages, right? Like I check in with my friends. I try to make sure that relationship is good. I try to make sure that I am giving, you know, as I receive. I really do place a high priority on my relationships because there have been times, you know, where you can't talk to your husband because he the one, he the
Hello?
one that's pissing you off.
Come on.
So,
Come on, Tara.
so you can't necessarily go to him,
Right.
and you may not have, you know, a therapy appointment scheduled, or you know, you may not be able to talk to your parents or your sisters or whoever. And so my friends have really helped me because they have stood in the gap for me. They have given me advice. They have I feel like as soon as I, you know, got out of that kind of like new mommy haze and then I was like able to like make plans with friends and like get
Mhm.
out more and do all of that, as soon as I was able to take my relationships up a notch and like treat them with much more seriousness, that's when my life began to level up in all
Mhm.
sorts of different ways because I had this community of women who were like, well, what do you need? You know, like how can I help you? You know, and in big and small ways. Like I remember the first meetup that I had, I think in 2018, you came to it and like you just it was over and you like helped, you know, pack up the food and like, you know, you were like, okay, I can toss this out and I can take this trash out. I could put these chairs back, you know, whatever you need. And it was like such a small thing, right? Like I didn't
Yeah.
ask you to do it. I
Right.
didn't ask you, you know, you didn't have to come, you
Right.
know, but
Yes.
just my friends show up for me in big and small ways. And it's like kind of like that future self thing. Like my friends help make my life run smoother. And so
Mhm.
I hope that my role as a friend, it helps them do the same. Like, cause if your friends aren't helping your life, you know, go, so like, what are they there for?
Right.
Like,
Yes. And I want
yeah.
to lean into that. I want to talk about that a little bit more because this is definitely not on the question list or whatever.
Hmm.
But because I get this often, like, how do you make friendships as adults, right?
Yeah.
Like, how, so if there's a tip that you can give as it relates to making new friends as adults, number one, and then I have another. Let's answer that first because I have another question too.
Yeah, the I think the thing that trips people up about making friends as adults is because we don't know how to ask out people to be our friend,
Hmm.
right? Like
Hmm.
that's what like we could spend time together, like or we could just be like think to ourselves like, oh, I think she's kind of cool, but you know, I don't know how to get the ball moving on that. Um, I took a look recently at all my friends that I had made in adulthood, so maybe like in the past 6, 7 years or so, and the majority of my friendships that I've made have started online.
Hmm.
And so I, found somebody who was really cool in my area on Instagram. I followed her, and now we kind of go out and get coffee or tea,
Mhm.
a couple times a quarter or whatever. Um, but most of my relationships have started out online, and then I've also met a few really good people, friends. Dashika, one of
Yeah.
them.
Mhm.
I met her at a was it like a networking event or something like that? And we have grown close over the past 3 or 4 years.
Mhm.
But it was really just about me finding somebody that I thought was cool, whether that was on Instagram or at an event, and finding a way to, like, quote unquote ask them out, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
you can't make friends by being scared to make friends. So I had to be like, hey, do you want to get coffee? Do you want to go get some lunch sometime? Everything is about food for me.
Mhm.
So
Yes, because we like to eat good.
yes,
We
we
like
like
to
to
eat.
eat. So do you want to
Mhm.
go get dinner? Like, I
Mhm.
want to eat something.
Mhm.
And so, just asking them out and then seeing how the conversation goes, how it flows, how y'all, interact with people. You don't have to have necessarily, the same outlook on everything, but like,
Right.
how do you feel when you're around this person? Do you feel lighter? Do you feel happier? Or are you kind of like, still timid and, don't really kind of know if this person's judgmental, whatever. But really just kind of get confident and being like, I'm looking to expand my friend circle. I'm looking to, add some more people to the mix. And then really being forward about asking these people out, women, men, whomever, and just spending, because I feel like you have to spend time. I think that's something that people don't do. Like, we don't do um, check-ins like we should with our friends. We can
Mhm.
let a month, 2 months go by, and it's like, "Oh, I haven't talked to you.
Right.
Like, what? I missed a whole bunch of
Mhm.
your life.
Mhm.
And when that happens, it's harder to like catch up and kind of know everything. So I really put, at least in my friendships, I really put a premium on check-ins, time
Yes.
spent. Even if that's just like a quick text, every couple days or
Mhm.
a couple times a week. But really, I want to be a part of my friend's life.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think if you're not at that stage, because like I said, it took me a while, because new motherhood wore me out. Like, I was just like, I don't want to go nowhere. I don't want to
Mhm.
talk to nobody. Y'all won't see me at no parties.
Right. Right.
I'm tired.
Mhm. Mhm.
So once I got to that point and I could say, okay, I have this time for friends, it was a lot easier.
Yeah, and you know what? I want to have you in the Be Free Inner Circle to have a
Mhm.
live chat about friendship. That literally just came to me because there's so much that we can talk about as it relates to friendship.
Yeah.
And there's so much that people can learn. So we're going to do a part two,
Mhm.
but we're going to do it inside the Be Free Inner Circle and continue this conversation. Because I have
Okay.
all these questions running through my head and I know we share like the same thing, but I do want to point out that you are an introvert because
Mhm.
then, when people think like, oh, you just ask somebody out, like you're not the person that's literally going to
Mm-mm.
walk up and, because you're
Mm-mm.
introverted, right? So
Mhm.
that means that sisterhood is so important to you that you're willing to step outside of your comfort zone to build these new relationships. And it can be done. It's so funny because the way that we met through a mutual friend,
Yeah.
Amber, that I just so happened to meet at a conference in 2014. And when she learned that I lived in Ohio, she was like, oh, my friend Tara's in Ohio. And we did not know each other at all. And
No.
she actually connected us. And then we became friends ever since. And so there's beauty in the internet and meeting new people. And even I would say over the last year, some
Mm.
friendships have definitely changed in my life. And I have just welcomed in some beautiful relationships with women that match my energy.
Mm.
And it just feels so good to my spirit. And I'm like, where you been all my life? Like, it just feels so good. And I'm so glad that we're friends because I can see myself growing. And I'm not the smartest one in the group. I'm not the one that's only on this personal growth journey. Like, we're all sharing. And I'm not the only entrepreneur. Like, we're all feeding off of one another, and it makes it so beautiful. So we're going to come back to this
Oh
because
yeah.
it's just, I'm like lit up inside. But I'm like, we'll be talking all day, right? So what makes you feel inspired or feel like your best self?
Whew. Um, I feel like my best self when I am creating community, obviously, like that's my thing.
Mhm.
Um, But I also feel like my best self when I am able to um, create the space for a woman to get clarity on her life, right? I'm not a therapist by training or anything. I have a background in journalism and I have a background in human development. So, what that means is I have a background in um, helping women to, listen to people's stories and then helping them kind of figure out the best way for them to kind of structure their life or what changes they need to make to get to the point where they feel like they're thriving. And so when I can, create space for women to, because a lot of women, as you know, are walking through life and they don't quite know what's wrong, right?
Mhm.
They know something is wrong. They know that, something is missing. They're stuck. They can't, see what that solution is. And when you can get them to pause for a moment and be like, oh, this is it. I don't feel like I'm respected in this relationship, or my job, my coworkers think I'm incompetent, or like whatever their thing may be. Whenever you can give a woman that space to pause, that's when I feel like I'm doing what I was meant to do. This is the Lord's work right here.
Yes,
This
yes,
this is
yes.
what I was meant to do, because we don't have those moments to pause all the time. If you don't have a dedicated space like the Be Free Inner Circle, you don't have a dedicated space where people are pouring into you and giving you things to think about and ways that you can grow. If you don't have that, then how do you find those pauses? How do you find
Yes.
that space to grow?
I don't even understand how people are functioning without community. Like I just picked up a new book today called it's called Belong, and it's all about building community. And
Mm.
she gave these and I'll send it
Oh
to you
yeah,
so
yeah.
you can see it.
Hmm.
But one of the statistics, she said like one out of every four Americans feel isolated or
Hmm.
something like that. And I'm like,
Hmm.
wow, like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm like, that is crazy to me, especially because I have so many arms wrapped around me, like
Right.
all the time. So I can't imagine going through this life without having a community of women that get me.
Right.
Like, that just blows my mind. Like, and then it's so much space for us with your self-care suite or the Be Free Inner Circle or, other things that women are creating out here. Like, whether they become a part of our things, they need to become a part of something, because there's
Something.
no reason that you should be doing life alone. No reason at all.
Something. No, and I've been doing a lot of research, and I'd love obviously to read that book.
Mm-hmm.
But doing all this research about how society has shifted so much in the past like 40, 50 years, where a lot of people aren't going to church like they used to, right? People are working more because wages, are stagnant and all of that stuff. There aren't as many like civic organizations that you can just join and be a part of, outside of like sororities and fraternities. Like there's nothing really for adults to really come together, communicate like that. How do we make adult friends? We used to just make friends by the people that we, were around in the neighborhood.
Yes,
But
yeah.
I don't know my neighbors, you know what I mean? Like I know their names, but I've been here 10 years. And like that whole, knit community thing doesn't exist in a lot of places anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So um having spaces where we can come together as women, and just I think it's vital. I think it's vital. Like there's, all this research about what loneliness does and how it
Mm-hmm.
shortens your lifespan and all of these things. Um, and having spaces where you can be yourself, you can pause, you can get that clarity on your life. You can also, in addition to the clarity, you can get some resources to kind of help you move forward and implement those changes. Like that is so vital. It's so necessary, because that's why women burn out, because they're trying to do it all on their own and they were never meant to.
Never meant
They
to do
they were
that.
never meant to.
No.
Never.
Carrying
Never.
all these bags and heavy,
Mhm.
heavy. Cup is so empty. And then wondering, like, well, what is going on? Put down the bags.
Yeah.
Put them down and figure out who you are.
Yeah.
Like, it breaks my heart when I look at a woman, and I've had this happen several times, and she doesn't know who she is.
Mm-hmm.
because she's been so busy doing all the things, taking care of husband, kids, all that stuff. She don't even know who she is anymore.
Right.
And then not doing nothing to change it because she's too
Yeah.
afraid. She's too fearful of, oh, what if this person doesn't like me? Or what if the kids, that mom guilt, all of that. And it's like,
Mm.
come on, like, I'm going to tell you one thing. And my whole family knows this. I put Siobhan first before everything, period. Not that I neglect anybody, but I need to check in with myself first. Like, I don't know if I said this in a podcast. No, I think I said it on IG or something. I had prepared the most delicious piece of salmon for lunch.
Mm.
And my son loves salmon. And he thought that I was going to give him a piece of the salmon. I said, no, I am going to eat this all by myself, and you're going to have a whole nother lunch. And he was like, you're not going to share with me? No. And it's not me being mean.
Mm-hmm.
I want to eat all of it. I want every last bite. And when I tell you, I enjoyed every last bit of it. And I thought, okay, no
Yeah.
mom guilt, none at all. This is mine, and
Mm-mm.
I'm going to enjoy it. So I think that there's so much to say about community, because then you learn things like this, right? And like, oh, I can eat all of my salmon or whatever it is, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to feel bad about that. You know what I mean?
Right.
What's one thing you would, and we only have a few more questions. What's one thing that you would tell your 20-year-old self?
Woo. That's a whole
I know.
episode too. um, and I do this a lot because I do the future self-care, but then I also do like past me, I soothe my past self. So like frequently, like I will um remember how I felt in certain situations. Like when I got pregnant with my daughter my junior year at college, I was convinced that my world was over. I had to, I don't know if I told you this, I turned down an internship with Essence. When yeah,
No.
yeah, turned down an internship with Essence because they weren't paying, right? And I was pregnant and I was like, I don't have any money. Like I need to make money. Like I
Yeah.
have a baby coming.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh great, like my dream of working for Essence isn't, it's not gonna come true. I just remember like that wasn't I was just like, okay, my life is gonna be different now. Like I've messed up, whatever. But I frequently like go back, kind of like close my eyes and like talk to her, that scared 20 something junior, and be like, you know what, sis, like it all works out. It
Yes.
all works out. Like I know
Yes.
you're scared right now and you cannot see what I see, but it all works out. And like I go back and I like hug her, and
Yep.
just let her know, yes, you're scared. Yes, you feel like you made a mistake, but I'm telling you, your daughter is wonderful. She's amazing. She
Mhm.
gets straight A's. She's in accelerated classes.
Yes.
Like things are good, right? You're still with
Yes.
your boyfriend. And I would just tell her, I would tell my 20 something self, it is going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to, the decisions that you're making today are scary and they're hard and they are, um, you know, in some cases painful, but the results that you're going to get, you couldn't even, this wasn't even, what I'm doing now wasn't even a thought
Nope.
back then. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
even a dream that I had. It's something that I had to go through along the way to get me to pivot to what I'm doing today. So I would just hug her,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I would just give her a hug and be like, it's gonna be okay.
Yep. And you were featured in Essence magazine a few years ago.
I sure was. I sure
Mm-hmm.
was. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So look at that. Look how that all comes back. What advice would you give to someone just starting out with change in their life?
Ooh, all these heavy questions.
You know me. You already
Yes,
know me. You already know.
yes. All these good questions.
This is the
Um,
last hard question, I promise.
yeah, I feel like um when you're just starting out, right? One thing that I did that I don't know if I recommend was I almost like blew my whole life up, right?
Oh,
Like I
okay.
was just like, I'm not doing this no more. I told my husband, like, I'm out of here. Like, I need to start over with everything because I've lost myself as a wife and a
Mm,
mother. And like, I need space to do what I need to do. And I can see now that was an overreaction, but that's kind of like the way my personality works. Um, I would just say to women to like really start with those like morning check-ins, right? You don't have to change everything all at once. But if you start on a day-to-day basis by like thinking about what you need and doing your best to give yourself that, over time it becomes second nature, and you're not living a life where your needs don't matter, where they're invisible, um, where you are burnt out and struggling to get through the day, and you're drinking coffee at 7 p.m. because you can't make it another
Hmm.
hour or
Hmm.
two without collapsing.
That used to be
um,
me.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So, and I know a lot of women who are like, yep, this is my fifth coffee of the day, because
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm so tired. And it's because
Yeah.
you're not tuned into yourself. You
Yeah.
don't know that you pushed yourself past your exhaustion point 3, 4 days ago, you
Yep.
know?
And now the caffeine is creating more anxiety. So now you got to keep it
Hmm.
going. I now
Hmm.
only drink 12 ounces. About 6 o'clock in the morning is when I have my coffee, and that's it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that is a shift for me because it used to be ongoing throughout the day. Like,
yeah.
oh, got to get
Hmm.
another cup. Keep going.
Hmm.
Not no more. Mm-mm.
Yeah,
No.
no.
Yeah. So, what book would you highly recommend the Girl Be Free listeners to read?
So I have my little library over here. I think and I think it goes with the theme of this episode, but there's this book that I love. It's called My Friend Fear, by Meera Lee Patel. Patel.
Oh, I've seen that.
She's like this illustrator, and she
Hmm.
has a number of books now. But My Friend Fear is my favorite one of hers, because it deals with turning fear from this negative emotion that we run from to like thinking of fear as our friend. And what if fear is our friend, and we listen to it, we can let it guide us, we can make peace with it. It can actually make our life better. And so reading that really helped. Reading that, and also I interviewed her, and just hearing some more of her thoughts about um, how fear can really improve our life, right? Like we run from it, but it's really something that can improve our life. So I really, really like that book, and all of her books. Start Where You Are, and I think the last one's called Made of Stars, I think. But all of her books are pretty, they got the watercolor
Hmm.
illustrations and everything. I really, really love all her books.
I'm going to get that because, I have a Be Free Life class coming up later this month, and it's called Free Yourself from Fear. And
Hmm.
so I'm helping women begin to identify their fears, practical things that they can apply. And so I think that that book will be a great tool. So I'm definitely I'm going to get it for myself, but I'm also going to share it with the community,
Yeah.
so that they can read that. What's the last thing you did for fun?
Oh, the last thing that I did for fun. So I did this with my family. We do this thing, it's called mandatory fun days.
Hmm.
So because they're teenagers, and so they don't really, it's not their first choice to hang out with us,
Right,
right?
right.
So for our last mandatory fun, we went to this like interactive like art exhibit thing in Columbus. It's really kooky. Like it's 30 rooms, I think. And it's one of those spaces where like there was a bunk bed in one of the rooms. And if you lift up the sheets, like you can crawl under and go to another room. Like it's
Oh,
it's like this really weird interactive, it messes with your eyes, like size and scale, and like all of this really crazy kooky stuff. And I've started doing this like mandatory fun Saturdays. It's like once a month or so, where we kind of just do something different and like out of the norm, and something that we wouldn't ordinarily do, because it's teenagers are hard
yes,
to
they are.
raise. And so I'm trying to inject some fun into it, right? Like I'm trying to have these moments where it's not like all discipline and arguments
Yes,
and door slamming or
yes.
whatever, but it's
Right.
like but it's fun, like
Hmm.
there's some elements of fun to it. And so the kids have taken to it, and they're
Oh,
like, when's our
good.
next mandatory fun day?
Yay. You have to send me the name of
I
that place
will.
because I need
I
something to do
will.
with the kids for spring break. So please
Yeah.
send me the name of that. Okay, so your last and final question. What does being free mean to you?
Ooh. So being free to me, and it's funny because I think somebody else asked me this before, and I got my answer from my son actually, because he's one of the most free individuals that I have ever had the pleasure of knowing. Like that little boy is like a bird. Like you cannot oh, like I'm so inspired by his life. Um, but I asked him one day, I was like, how do you just always have this energy? Like, how are you always so like ready to go and everything? And he said, well, mommy, he said, I wake up happy. And I was like, he wakes up happy. And that became my like barometer for being free, right? Like,
Yes.
do I wake up happy? Do I wake up like, oh my God, it's Monday. I don't want to do this. Like, it's, oh, it's Friday. I can't believe I just got here. Like I've been working so hard. Do I wake up happy? Do I wake up feeling like, whatever's on my agenda for the day, like, can I handle it? Do I feel dread about it? Do I feel stress about it? And for the most part, I do wake up happy, because
Me
I
too.
know that, these meetings on my agenda, like for the most part, I made them up, like they're
Hmm.
just meetings that I want to have. And if they're not meetings that I want to have, I know that afterward, like I can do something nice for myself. Um, so I really look to my son there to be like, okay, and as part of my like daily check-ins with myself to be like, okay, if I didn't wake up happy, what do I need to
Yes.
do to
Yes.
to change that, to turn this day around? And so yeah, that I think that is a big part of my definition of being free is like, do I wake up happy?
I love every bit of that. Like, that is it.
Hmm.
Do I wake up happy? And if not, what am I going to do to change it?
Yeah.
And like you, 90%, 95% of the time I do. I wake up because I get to do what I love every single day. And
Hmm.
that's what gives you joy. That's what makes you happy because you're doing things that fulfill your heart. I love it. I could
Right.
talk to you literally all day.
Yes.
Thankfully, you're my friend, so we get to hang out at any time. But let the Girl Be Free listeners know where they can find you.
Yeah. So you can find me at on my website, the Self Care Suite, SUITE, and you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Where Women Bloom, and on Facebook at Where Women Bloom. And if you search in the Self Care Suite, you'll find our support group on there, and we'd love to have you.
I love it. And your group is everything. It's
Yeah.
everything. I love the engagement. I love how vulnerable women are and how much support, how they support one another without you always having to be present. That
Amen.
is an entrepreneur, not even just an entrepreneur. The work that you and I do, that is our dream, that the
Hmm.
women will come together and support one another so that we don't always have to show up, but we poured so much into the community that they are able to do the work for us. In a
Right.
way, I love that. But I'm very grateful. I'm very, very, very grateful for our friendship. You mean so much to me. I'm grateful that we built something over time and it's just going to continue to flourish. And I love having you a part of my circle. Like, it means everything. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to be here, happy to support you in all that you do. I think that your work is phenomenal, it's transformative, and I want nothing but good things for you
Thank
in
you.
this year, next year, all the years to come, because you are like the best at what you do. Like you
Oh,
really, really, truly are. And so I'm just like, I can be on your podcast. I can't wait to be on your podcast. Like, just
yes.
tell me where to show up, when to show
Mm.
up, and I'm there.
Well,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
And until next time, girl, be free. Hey, BFFs. I want to personally invite you to BeFreeInnerCircle.com, your community for real sisterhood where women are showing up and doing the work. Whether you're still trying to figure out what you want to be when you grow up, or you need accountability to keep pushing forward to reach your goals, the Be Free Inner Circle is the community for you. You can expect curated content that will support you on becoming the best version of yourself, live office hours and Q&A sessions where we chat about things like overcoming self-doubt, building your confidence, practicing self-care without guilt, and so much more. Virtual live events from book clubs and workshops with guest speakers, and a supportive and active community of women that will encourage you, hold you accountable, cheer you on, and give you honest feedback and advice. It's the perfect place to be for women who are ready to show up, flourish, and be free. Join today at BeFreeInnerCircle.com.